What is up, guys? I'm Speo with the Voice of Reason, coming at you today with another sound design video. This one is on an easy but powerful Reese-y Bass that'll get you started in genres like Neuro Hop or Neuro Funk, and it sounds something like this. So let's get to rebuilding it. First up, we wanna chuck in a combinator, and inside the combinator we'll create a maelstrom. On the maelstrom we'll select the sawtooth times 16 wavetable for the first oscillator, and we'll bring it down to octave 2. Then we'll switch on the second oscillator, leave it as a sine wave, and we'll bring it down to octave 2 as well. We'll also bring down the polyphony to 1, so it's a monosynth, and we'll bring the portamento up to about 30. And there's our basis for the bass. Now usually you want to process a Reese bass using a notch filter, but as you can see, maelstrom doesn't come with an inbuilt notch filter. So what we have to do is we'll create a thaw while holding down shift so it doesn't auto route up. And then we'll flip the rack around, disconnect the main outputs on the maelstrom and connect them to the audio in 1 and audio in 2 inputs on the thaw. Then we'll reconnect the audio outputs of the thaw to the from devices input on the combinator. Inside the thaw, we want to deactivate the first oscillator and the first filter because we don't want the thaw to generate any sound. We just want it for its notch filter. And we're gonna chuck in a state variable filter on filter 3, and this one will switch to notch mode, bring the envelope and velocity all the way down, the envelope amount and velocity amount all the way down, and we'll bring the frequency down to about 75 Hz. Now we'll select the audio input 1 in the modulation matrix of the thaw and route it with an amount of 100 to the filter 3 left in. Next up, we'll select the audio input 2 on the thaw in the modulation matrix and route it with an amount of 100 to the filter 3 right in. Now that this is hooked up, we can modulate the sound that comes out of the maelstrom with the notch filter on the thaw. Awesome. What we want to do is what we want to do next is hook the filter envelope up to the frequency on the notch filter, so we can actually have the notch filter be like a contribute some movement to the sound. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the sustain and release all the way down on the filter envelope, and we'll bring the attack up to about 50 milliseconds and the decay down to about 700 milliseconds. And then we'll select the filter envelope in the modulation matrix and route it with an amount of 100 to the filter 3 frequency. And just like that, the sound sounds a lot more interesting. We can also turn on the chorus on the thaw to make the sound a little wider, but we'll bring down the dry wet to about 30. Sweet. You can of course always play with the attack and decay on the filter envelope to just change the way the modulation is happening on the frequency of the notch filter. But I like it when the decay is at about 700 milliseconds and the attack at about 50. It just gives it a nice kind of wobbly sound. Okay. Next up, we're gonna create a Scream 4 just beneath the thaw, and we'll switch it to tape mode, of course, and we'll bring the speed all the way up to 127. We'll leave the compression at about 30, and we'll take the damage down to about 42 and bring the master up a bit. Sweet. Then we can route it into an equalizer. On this equalizer, we'll boost the lows a bit, so we'll select the first parameter, bring the frequency all the way down to about 39 Hz, and bring the gain up to about 11 dB. And then we'll adjust the Q to about 1.5, so we have a nice kind of upward curve towards the lows, which gives the bass a lot more impact. We can also turn on low cut just to get rid of the below 30 Hz rumble. Next up, we're gonna use the parameter 2 to get rid of some mids. So we'll just create a little hole there with about -8 dB at about 800 Hertz, and we'll bring the Q down to about 2.8. And then we'll boost the highs a bit using the high shelf. Just bring the gain up to about 4 dB. Sweet. Next up, we can also create a reverb unit just to make it sound a little bigger and more natural. And we'll switch the algorithm to room, bring down the decay to about 32, the dry wet as well to about 22. And then we'll switch into the EQ mode, bring the low gain down to minus 18 dB, and we'll bring the frequency up to about 700 or 800 Hertz. And then we'll not forget to activate the EQ up here. Just makes it sound a little more natural. And there you have it. There's your basic but pretty powerful Reese-y Bass that you can use, for example, in a verse and in a Neuro hub track. If you don't want the bass to be all crazy just yet, right before the drop, you could use this kind of Reese-y Bass construction. Because it's not too, well, it doesn't pull that much focus, but it still sounds pretty rad, I'd say. Okay. This is it. My name's been Speo, this was the Voice of Reason. I hope this tutorial was useful. If it was, drop a like, that would be much appreciated. I'll see you next time. Have a good one of whatever you're having.